Berbicara tentang penelitian, saat ini semakin banyak cara untuk melakukan perolehan data, khususnya dalam penelitian kualitatif dengan paradigma konstruktivis. Salah satu di antaranya adalah Photovoice. Apa dan bagaimana perolehan data dengan Photovoice ini? Saat ini kita akan berkesempatan untuk belajar dari Dr. Ignatius Cahyanto, seorang akademisi yang mengajar di University of Louisiana di Amerika. Saya Doreen Kartikawangi, selamat mengikuti Photovoice.
Saya asli Jogja. Saya kuliah S1 di Sanata Dharma dan Gajah Mada. Dua tempat, jadi pagi kuliah di Sanata Dharma, kemudian siangnya di Gajah Mada, kemudian sore mengajar. Kebetulan tahun 2005 itu saya mendapat kesempatan untuk mengajar bahasa Indonesia di Amerika melalui program Foreign Language Teaching Assistant dari Fulbright. Setelah 1 tahun di Florida, kebetulan saya ditempatkan di Florida, saya mendapat kesempatan untuk belajar S2 di kajian pariwisata. S1 saya dulu di UGM itu di Sanata Dharma itu pendidikan bahasa Inggris, kemudian di Gajah Mada itu sastra Indonesia Raya. Kemudian S2 saya itu kajian pariwisata, kemudian saya mendapat kesempatan untuk mendapatkan S3 di juga kajian pariwisata. Fokus saya ke crisis and disaster management. Saya banyak bergerak di area crisis and disaster management for tourism industry. Jadi kebetulan COVID ya, kebetulan saya ada banyak kerjaan. Jadi ke pariwisata sebenarnya sangat ya, kalau pariwisata hospitality kemudian sangat kena dampak ya negatif dengan COVID. Saya terlibat di beberapa hal penanganan COVID juga. Sebelum COVID, saya terlibat di beberapa proyek, misalnya untuk Tsunami Ready di Southeast Asia, kemudian Hurricane Preparedness di Karibia, dan beberapa tempat lain. Saya setelah S3 mendapat kesempatan untuk mengajar di South Dakota. Selama 5 tahun, saya kemudian bosan ya, kemudian kebetulan pindah ke Louisiana di tahun 2017 sampai sekarang. Saya mendapat kesempatan untuk menjadi program coordinator untuk hospitality management di kampus saya. Begitu. Nanti bisa kalau boleh bertanya, bisa aja bertanya, silahkan ya. Kebetulan mau pulang ke Indonesia, sambil masih menunggu. Saya ada rencana sebenarnya untuk kembali ke Indonesia, untuk ada kerjaan juga di Indonesia summer ini. Cuma gara-gara COVID saya harus menunggu juga, sampai menunggu Indonesia buka dulu. Mungkin Juli. Begitu. Topik kita hari ini itu Photovoice dan Survey 1, 2, 3 for communication research. Let me see. So, again, I'm going to use 2 languages, so make sure that, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay?
Gak apa-apa, Mas, biar mahasiswa juga bertanyanya dalam bahasa Inggris ya. Supaya terlatih. Banyak yang pintar-pintar kok.
Education jangan bahasa Jawa, Mas, walaupun kalau saya bisa.
Saya bahasa Jawa sudah lupa. Sedikit masih ingat. Cuma kalau harus berbicara dengan bahasa kromo Inggil agak pusing saya.
Bundet ya. Yeah. Oke, nanti mahasiswa bertanya dalam bahasa Inggris. Kemudian ada 2 buku dari Raja Grafindo, buku komunikasi organisasi, itu untuk penanya terbaik. Nah, nanti yang menetapkan Mas Ignas saja, siapa yang berhak mendapatkan buku tersebut. Gitu ya. Silahkan, Mas.
Okay, so first of all, so here kind of like what we're going to do today, right? So we are going to discuss the theory. So we're going to talk about Photovoice and also participatory research action, okay? And then moving from there, we are going to talk about the instrument, for example, survey 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to talk about the examples. So we are going to talk more about the Bantam project and also at home assignment that I gave you to do. Before that, let's see if you can see this one. Okay, so that is on how. So do you see that like in one, so if you have cell phone, if you have laptop, if you can go to polef.com/Ignatius Cahyanto 472, okay, and then you're going to be there's a questions there, just one question, okay, just one question, and I think the system going to ask you like what is your name or something along that line, but feel free to skip it. But if you can answer that question in one word, just one word only, what comes to your mind when you hear the word photo? Okay, if you can type it, and then hopefully, if technology, you know, okay, good, we have model. All right, so pop up here. Okay, come on, people. All right, scenery, good, model. What else? We have 64 or 60 something, right? 75. So give me one word. Okay. Static scenery, story, frame, images, scenery, memories, model, beauty, angle, imitation, frame. All right, keep coming. All right, so we have projection, model, all right. Okay. Depression. Background stories. Keep going. abstract, angle, panorama, beauty, places. Okay, it seems kind of stop. All right, so if you look at here, it seems to me that some of the words that you guys use are related to stories, memory, frame, right, panorama, and so forth. So I'm going to, can anybody tell me why when you, hold on. Okay, so anyhow, let me pull up this one. Okay, so anybody want to share why that word? Anybody? No taker?
Silakan kalau mau menjawab pertanyaan.
To jump in. All right, so it is interesting that when you use this word, right? So for example, color, moment, story, perspective, aesthetic, and purpose, those kind of thing.
Sir?
Yes.
My name is Rafael. Maybe I answer with projection. The reason being is that in my mind, when I see photos, it's more about capturing a moment maybe with camera, maybe even eyes, because photo is not only from phone, from the portable camera, but it's more like taking a moment and then make a projection about it. It's
Okay.
not about the real thing, maybe about a photo of sky. It's not about the sky. It's actually the projection. It's actually about the moment the picture's taken. Maybe
Okay.
that's why I take projection as the answer.
Okay, good point. So if you, that's really interesting, okay? Because when you have photo in front of you, actually we're not only looking at the photo by itself, but also we're looking beyond that photo, right? The story behind the photo, right? So every single photo has story, either good, bad, whatever, but there's a story that we want to know more about it. So that leads to why photograph? There are a lot of reasons why people are taking photos, but photograph is essential because of these reasons. The first one is photo is a visual inventory, right? Of object, people, and artifact, anything. The second one is also represent event that part of collective or institutional past. Remember that we like taking photo of events, right? Or it also portray intimate dimension of social. Think about when you take pictures or a photo when you have, for example, birthday or special event in our life, right? You take picture along with your friends or family, social bonding, and so forth. So in research, in social science, photograph can be analyzed by two things. The first one is directly. So pretty much if you see photo and now we're going to analyze photo based on angle, color composition, frame, you name it. So that's what we call as a content analysis. Or we can also analyze photo indirectly, meaning we try to understand the story behind the photo. That leads to photo elicitation. Okay. So in photo elitization approach, photo is not an object by itself. We are interested beyond that photo. It helps us to understand the story or meaning behind that photo. So there are a lot of terms you're going to hear if you really interested in photo in research. You're going to hear about, let's say, reflexive photography, okay, or photonovela, or photojournal. Multiple terms, similar ideas. Reflexive photography, for example, you ask people to take picture and then you analyze it. Photonovela, similarly, but you're going to ask your participants to write a short narrative about the photo. Photojournal, multiple days. So the idea remains the same. Inserting a photograph into an interview to provoke response. So I like Photovoice, and I've been using Photovoice for a while now. When I started probably in 2006, that was my first encounter with Photovoice. Photovoice itself developed in the 1990s, but the idea is you allow participants to take picture of their day life, and then we interview them. Okay. So Photovoice is a participatory action research. Unlike typical research method, quantitative method, for example, like survey, this kind of thing, we do not just go to participants like, hey, can you fill the survey? No, you don't do that. Rather, you engage the participant. Okay, we are the researcher. As a researcher, we just a facilitator. Yeah. So Photovoice provides opportunity for community to document their concerns, and then simultaneously act as a catalyst for change. What that means is that they can be creative with photo. It's their life, which is provide them with opportunity to voice their concern. Hence the word Photovoice. So Photovoice is, I like it because you can be very creative with it. Okay. It's highly customizable for community-based intervention. Once you have the photo, you can use it in multiple ways. You can create photo books for website, you name it. So pretty much in Photovoice, you try to achieve three things. The first one is to enable people to record and reflect their community strength and concern through taking photos. Okay, so they take pictures, not you, not us. Second, to promote critical dialogue and knowledge about important personal and community issues through discussion of the photographs. Once they took photo, then we develop it and we discuss the photo. And hopefully, pretty much is the last piece of Photovoice is to reach policymakers. By showcasing your photos and so forth through exhibition, for example, you try to persuade policymakers to change their policy, for example, or to inform them. There are a couple of advantages of Photovoice. It can be used at any stage of the research. So for example, if you just want to gauge community concerns for a certain topic, you can do it. Or after you complete your study, for example, then you want to look at another ways of confirming your finding, you can use Photovoice. It helps to bridge psychological and physical realities. Photo, for example, right? Promote longer and more detailed interview in comparison to verbal interviews. What that means is that, remember when we get interviewed or when you interview somebody, and if you have something in front of you that can trigger or provoke, or memory, for example, then it is easier to interview somebody because you have something in front of you. Photo, for example, then people talk on and on about photo. That's what I mean by longer and detailed interview. It helps recalling the experience. It also provides component of multi-method triangulation to impose rigor. I think the beauty of Photovoice is you can combine it with traditional survey or focus group or other research methods. So you can look at the same thing from various angles and combine the finding. Now you can see from the entire picture. It also preferable to conventional interviews by many participants. I think when we talk about Photovoice, especially for vulnerable groups, like for example, homeless or undocumented immigrants, for example, or women group in the village, then oftentimes the finding of those studies show that participants enjoy the project more than just giving, okay, can I interview you for this study, for example? Because again, it allows them to be creative. It engages them in the process. It also opened the door for follow-up or other projects, sometimes based on the photo or sometimes based on the interview that you conduct, with participants. You sometimes end up with like new idea, okay, that you can employ further with your study. But of course, with this kind of method, based on my experience, there are a lot of challenges. That's why Photovoice is not for everybody in any occasion. There are a lot of challenges that we need to address. First one is ethical issues. For example, you're going to see this one from the photo that you submitted, actually. I'm going to talk more about it. But it can create a more intimate, delicate situation and other methodological approaches. What that means is that when you give camera to participants, for example, even when you ask them to take photo of certain thing, you cannot control what kind of photo they're going to take. Okay, so you end up with like some weird photo, but it's their life, it's a story. There are also other challenges that would not happen in word alone interview context. For example, participant skill associated with taking photo, right? Or privacy concern. Financial cost. Well, traditionally, when this method developed in 1990s, we used disposable camera. Okay, so if you have 40 people, for example, then that's 40 disposable cameras. Then the next iteration of Photovoice, we use digital camera. But still, if you have, I don't know, 20 participants, for example, well, you would need a couple of cameras and the cost. But also the cost associated with conducting the project itself. So unlike interview, survey, you can like 5 minutes, right? With Photovoice, you have to commit at least 3 weeks, depending on the topic you look at. So sometimes 4 weeks, because you need to give enough time for participants to take photos. You also need to be aware of different definitions of what belongs in a photograph. And I'll tell you why. The same photo of a cat will have different story depending on who take picture of that cat, right? And I'm going to discuss a little bit more about it when we look at your photo. Also, we have to look at both words and images in analyzing data, and that's time consuming. Unlike, for example, content analysis, where you just count the number of photos. Okay, how many photos that contained camera or outdoor versus indoor, for example. It is easy, but with Photovoice, a little bit tricky because you have to combine photo and the narrative associated with that photo. So again, Photovoice is not for everybody. It's not for any occasion. However, it is appropriate and is the best way to use when there's a need to create awareness around a certain issue or concern. So I challenge you, with COVID, you have a lot of area to explore. Go with Photovoice. Okay. So with Photovoice, you have two elements. The first one's photo itself. The second one is narrative associated with that photo. So, okay, so here are the stages. This is pretty much the traditional standard Photovoice method. The first thing is to have photo making workshop. Okay, why it is important? Yes, a lot of people know how to take photo, but their level of skill set may be different. All right. So the first thing, you have workshop. The second one, kind of photo taking, and then the third one, photo discussion, followed by photo exhibition, in which you showcase the result to public and policymakers. So let's go down one by one. Okay. So for the making workshop, first thing, it is interesting to introduce the community about your project and make sure you know about what you expect them to do. Make sure you tell like content, for example, how to take photo. What are you taking a photo of? Does it stand out? Rule of third, and so forth. Some of the consideration during photo making workshop, participants, for example. Who's your participants? Are those already in a vulnerable group, for example, like women, homeless, and so forth? Your topic, for example, how complicated your topic? Skill, location, is it hard to reach location? Is it wide? Ethical issue and so on. So speaking about ethical issue, I'm going to highlight a couple of things that, since we work with photo, and I think in Indonesia, we get used to like taking the snap here, snap there, but in internationally, we have to have consent, right? Taking photo, for example. The first thing is that you have to make sure that your participants know how to obtain informed consent. For example, if you ask your participant to take photo of people, for example, then you want to make sure that they ask for permission or a consent that that individual willing to be a photo, for example. All right. You do not want to invite somebody's privacy. Okay. You also need to protect participants. Will it harm me or other, or is it dangerous? Meaning that you don't want to ask them to take photo something that dangerous or from somewhere that high risk for them. The third one is you also need to protect the community. When you ask somebody to take photo, then the question is, will it put a person employment status, for example, in community in jeopardy? Okay, for example, like, I don't know, you ask them to take photo of something, something that degrading, for example, or anything around that line. False light. You want to make sure that the photo accurately represents the situation, and that's the tricky one. It's not staged. That's what I try to say. The second step is photo taking. You want to make sure that you give your participants enough time to take photo. You are probably like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on what you ask them to take photo of. You also need to check them frequently to make sure that they actually do it. Okay. So you still have the full app open, right? Now, okay, so answer this question. So once you have the photo, okay, 4 weeks, and then you gather the photo, then you want to use the photo for interview. Question is, should you crop the photo that will be used for interview? Yay or nay? Same thing, go to polaf.com, Ignatius, CHY 472.
Silakan dijawab ya. Ya atau tidak.
The question on polaf.com should refresh. So you should be able to see this particular question. But if you do not see it, let me know. Because sometimes technology can be a little bit iffy.
I'm sorry, I did not see the question.
How about now? Can you see it?
It's still the same question before.
Yeah, it's still the same question from the last one.
Okay, hold on. How about now? Can you refresh it?
It's still the same.
Still the same, sir.
Oh, I hate technology. All right. All right, so just answer the question then, orally, right? So should you crop the photo that will be used for interview or not? Anybody who want to answer?
I think I will not crop the photo since I'd like to give them raw data of the photo. I think that would be best.
Okay. Good point. Anybody else?
I think I will crop the photo because sometimes you take the information that not you want.
Okay. Good point. Anybody else want to try?
Yes, I think you should crop the photos because so we can be more focused on what we want to show for the interview, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't think I'll crop the photo Because it could like take away the meaning of the photo, if that makes sense.
Okay, so all right, so thank you. You don't want to crop the photo. That's the correct answer. Why? Because keep in mind that in Photovoice, we use photo indirectly, right? So at this point, yes, you have the photo from your participants, but do you know what's the focus of the photo? Even if there's a group of people, right? A group of people in that photo, do you know the focus or do you know the story behind it? We don't at this point, not until the interview. So I would recommend you not to crop it because we don't know the story yet. Once you know the story, once you know the meaning of a photo right after the interview, then you can crop it. Of course, in consultation with your participant. Make sense? So here the photo elicitation interview. So once you have the photo, you can use it in interview. You can do group interview. You can also do focus group. It's up to you, okay? Depending on the context, depending on the situation. Sometimes it makes more sense to have group interview. Again, depending on the topic. All right. So traditionally, interview will focus on the content of the photo. So here, just one example, the standard procedure of interview. First thing you ask them, okay, what do we see here? Is it a cat? Is it a house? I don't know. What is really happening here? Okay, tell me what's going on here, right? How does it relate to our lives? Okay. Why does the situation, concern, or strength exist? So basically, you ask them, okay, tell me what's going on here. Why is it a problem? How do we know it's a problem? All right. Then ask them, what can we do about it? By asking what we can do about it, you actually ask them to solve the problem, right? I want to show you something. When I did a project in early 2006, when we involved in a project to develop tourism, village tourism in Jogja, and that time I had to use a disposable camera. So, well, your generation probably didn't. Do you remember about disposable camera, or kind of like, well, it's not as popular as in the 90s, but in early 2000, I had to bring 45 disposable camera from United States because it was very expensive in Indonesia, in Jogja also. So I gave disposable camera to villagers and asked them to take photo of things, people, or event, anything that represent they want to share with visitors. Okay. The question is very simple. Take picture of anything that's important for you in this village. Can be people, person, and so forth. The idea is that when you take photo of something that's meaningful for you, there's always element of it that you want to share with others, and there's an element that you want to keep for yourself. Then the element that we want to share with others, we can develop it for tourism products. Like, for example, okay, if you take photos of river, for example, then, okay, how we can connect all the dots to create a package tour. or how we develop tourism based on the photo. So at that time, we did not use digital cameras. So I still remember that I had to develop hundreds of photos. What I did, I want to show you one thing. Nowadays, we don't use it, but hold on. So can you see, this is pretty much from my last time. So I had to develop a photo, a small piece like this one, so that I can use it in the interview. So this is pretty much all the project. I'm going to show you because I'm small, but I'm going to show you in development of that one. Okay, but that's pretty much the standard procedure of Photovoice, right? So hopefully at this point, you know how to do Photovoice in a standard way. Let's see if this works again. If I'm not, I'm going to be really, really upset, but we'll see. Okay. The next step is a photo exhibition. That's a time when you showcase the photo along with narrative to public. Okay, so you can use like this, for example, exhibition, photo book, or any merchandises. When I did tourism development in the village, that village in Jogja, I used the photo and then convert it as a merchandise. We also use it as a postcard, okay, a souvenir from the village. Once you have the photo, it's, you know, you can use many ways. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can answer this one. Okay, do you see this question or not? And Olaf?
Yes, I see.
All right, so answer that question. In the past 48 hours, how many times have you taken photo with your smartphone? I was kind of curious with the generation. Okay, 1 to 5. Okay. Well, 40%, 1 to 5. Okay, so we have 39% took 1 to 5 photo in the past 48 hours. Okay, down to 38. 6 to 10, not 31%. Well, I'm interested with this one. More than 20, 13%. Okay, 0.3%. So if you look at this, so at least within the past 48 hours alone, you use your camera and your cell phone, right? So that's actually the second step of Photovoice, or second iteration of Photovoice. Remember the first step, the first iteration of Photovoice, we used disposable camera. Second iteration, digital camera. But nowadays, well, everybody has smartphone, and you have camera-equipped smartphone. Nobody uses disposable camera anymore, well, at least it's not popular. Nobody, but still some of them, I guess, bring DSLR when they travel. Most, no, we just use smartphone. Take selfie, Wilfie, you name it. So we carry smartphone every day, right? That leads to how can we use current technology to improve the quality of Photovoice? With smartphone, you took a lot of photo. Social media, for example, internet and Wi-Fi. What that tells me is that if we can leverage current technology with Photovoice, well, it's gonna be fabulous, right? So that question is, how can we leverage it? That leads us to survey 1, 2, 3. Okay, survey 1, 2, 3. For example, just like SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics, or probably some of you already familiar with Google Doc. Survey 1, 2, 3. It is to by ArcGIS. If you are a geographer, you're probably familiar with mapping. ArcGIS actually have the survey 1, 2, 3, and I really like survey 1, 2, 3 for Photovoice for a couple of reasons. The first one, for obviously, because it allows me to create map based on photo that people take from smartphone. It's also everybody use a smartphone anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to dig deeper in with survey 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go give you example on how we use survey 1, 2, 3. But pretty much for survey 1, 2, 3, the process quite simple. You create questions in survey 1, 2, 3, different kinds, and then you can collect images, you can rating, give point, you name it. And then you can also push survey to cell phone, what technology of user, for example, and then user answer in an online environment. The beauty of it, all survey data, image stored in one place. It also, you can then manipulate data. For example, you can create charts, statistic, map, you name it. Okay, something that we cannot use with the standard procedure for Photovoice. I call it Photovoice 2.0. Before I show you survey 1, 2, 3, I'm going to talk about one project that we currently been doing with Fiabicom. So, all right, do you recognize any of these individuals? So, this is our project with Fiabicom. Last year, we looked at the impact of the 2018 tsunami and Banten tourism reliant community in Tanjung Lesung. We collected data last summer, 2019. We're still working on data analysis, but what I'm going to share with you is some of the lessons learned by using this method. So survey 1, 2, 3, and Photovoice. Okay. So in this study, we're interested to look at how community in Tanjung Lesung experience tsunami, looking at the impact of tsunami in tourism, local tourism, how they cope with it, and then what some of the strategy they have to recover, okay, following the tsunami. So this is the photo that we took from the first meeting with Bob Darwis in the area. Where we tell them, okay, we are going to have the voice. Here's some of the instructions, what's the benefit, and so forth. So this one instruction for participants. So for example, we created a WhatsApp group for this project. And then we use WhatsApp group to post the question. So basically the project, they have 1 week to take photos, okay? The project runs for 4 weeks. So each of the week, they have different questions. So week 1, for example, I asked them votelah hal-hal apa saja yang merefleksikan pandangan mereka tentang dampak bencana tsunami pada usaha pariwisata di komunitas Anda. 1 week, okay? And then they upload the photo along with narrative to a WhatsApp group. We post the link on WhatsApp group. And then week 2, respond. And then week 3, a strategy. And week 4 is resilience. Okay, so every week we ask them to take picture 5. We want to make sure that they capture their thought fully. So that's the reason why 5 pictures. So, okay, this is your dean, right? Pak Eko, right? So Pak Eko, this is led the photography workshop. So in the workshop, the topic is how to take good photo, and then the ethic, and then consent, and so forth. Quite fun. Okay. And then this one is the screenshot of our WhatsApp. So this one is the links to the survey. So if we click it, then it pop up the question. So people just cannot just load it there. So once we have the photo and the photo development, we have a photo discussion based on the week assignment. Okay, so some of the lessons that we learned using Survey 1, 2, 3 for Photovoice, we found that technology and coverage can be a little bit iffy, but it's powerful. We use this method because the area in Tanjung Lesung, most people already have, again, a cell phone with camera embedded, coverage, okay, but still doable. We also found that the power of group app with WhatsApp, for example. For some of you already taken crisis management or crisis communication, for example, you would know it is critical to have a good crisis communication medium. What we found, quite interesting. During our field work, if you remember last year, apparently there's also another tsunami warning issued. So our WhatsApp group organically became a crisis communication medium. So people start posting whether like, okay, I've been evacuated, where you want to evacuate it, and then we also post some of the alert and so forth. It's organically become or evolve as a crisis communication medium, which is really, really interesting, especially because our topic is about a crisis or disaster for tourism industry, right? Management for tourism industry. Empowering communities. One thing that we found for survivor is that learning how to take photo and express themselves using photo is not only empowering, but also therapeutic. Because it allows them to be more creative and move on with their experience. Sure, we have some of the challenges, like for example, the instruction. you want to have clear instruction. It's not too restricted, but it's not too broad, so that you can have wiggle room for participants to be more creative or to be creative. Attrition rate. Keep in mind that you would need 3, 4, or 5 weeks of commitment. Okay. Now, it has become challenging for someone to commit their resource or time for 5 weeks. Unlike, for example, survey, 5 minutes done. It will take 5, 4 weeks. So some people may drop out. Okay. When that happens, you may have 2 possibilities. The first one, you end up losing people, or that individual may find somebody else to replace him or her, right? This individual, as a filler, they did not go for the workshop where you explain the ethic, finding consent, and so forth. So you may end up with some of the photo that probably cannot be used. Where you try to have women participation, for example. But the problem is that sometimes they drop out. Gender balance get affected. Appropriate time. When is the best time to have this method? So, for example, in the context of disaster management, for example, well, of course, you don't want to ask them to take photo of things during the response or 24 hours after the impact, because they have a different priorities, right? So be careful with finding appropriate time to collect data if you want to use Photovoice. Okay, so let me see. Okay, I'm going to show you survey 1, 2, 3 now. For some reason, I know that like you have this red thing. For some reason, I don't know why it happened. Because from my end, I don't see this red thing. Okay, so this is survey 1, 2, 3. You can see it, right? So, okay. So when you enter survey 1, 2, 3, you will have this dashboard. Okay. You can create a new survey. You got 2 options, using Web Designer or using Survey 1, 2, 3 Connect. The simplest way, using Web Designer. This one's sophisticated, but a lot of work. You can use this one. Let's say I can name it as Asian. It's like, just for fun. Oh, sorry, I thought I already have to. Okay, so your survey created. So all you need now, depending on your question, you can just single line, you can create this one, or you can come with multiple choice. All you need to do is just ask the questions and then label it. It's quite simple because just drop and add. Okay, very simple. For Photovoice, we use this one. Okay, so basically version image. That's what I did for your assignment also. So that pretty much quite simple. You can change the appearance, and then this one. But what I'm going to tell you, okay, so this is all the project I'm working on. So if you look at see, just for fun, I'm going to show you. Okay. This one. So this one, the abandoned project that we're working on. So you can see here, Puerto Rico, we have 23 individual respondents for submitted, last submitted. You can also see the timeline. So if I want to see the data, and the data, you can just click analyze. Okay, so if you can see here, this one, the question is, alasan nga puti mga tanggapan, respond, local tourism. So again, that's the reason why I don't want to crop before the interview, because if you just look at this picture, for example, I don't necessarily know, as a researcher, I don't necessarily know what's the focus of this photo, right? So if I crop it, where, how? Because I don't know it yet. So once, hold on. Okay, so you have this one. Then you read this one. Then you can use this one for interview. Okay? So you can somehow relate that narrative to the photo for further discussion in the interview. Oh, that's a photo. Right, so you can see this one, the narrative. You're going to see the impact. I have no idea why this line happened. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so this is the example of how we do Photovoice using 3123. Now, I'm going to show you what, assuming you already submitted, right? Let me see. Where is it? Nope, nope. Okay, so I guess this one. Okay, this is the fun part. Okay, so 69%. Remember when I asked you to take photo of like a work from home, or like what is the question again? Stay at home. Okay, stay at home. Okay, so I can see that you have 69 of you submitted. And then if you can see this one, this is pretty much the timeline that most of you fill it during like May 2nd, May 1st, and so forth. So let's see the photo and how you, if you are the researcher, how would we do? Okay. Di rumah saja bagiku adalah, okay. All right, so this is the fun part. Let's just go gallery. This is, remember, this is the information about the photo. So, okay, got social media, Instagram, blah, blah. Okay. So again, if I only analyze the photo, I will not know what is the story behind the photo. And that's the beauty of Photovoice, allow you to, you know, see beyond the photo itself. Okay. So, but if you look at this, so I just give you snapshot of the photo. Okay. All right, so a lot of photos, 69. Okay, it's a question. Okay. So here there is the short narrative of the photo. Di rumah saja, sampai lama pandemi COVID langsung trending. Okay. Anybody can tell me about this? What is the biggest number of words?
Bosan.
Bosan. Second one?
Nyaman.
Okay. Which come first?
Bosan yang paling banyak ya.
But then the question is, which come first? The first stage, you get bored, right? And then you get comfortable because you get adjusted your life with, you know, activity. Once you adjusted, you feel kind of comfortable with it, or you feel comfortable with the situation, and then but then stick too long, almost 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you get bored. So which one first? Bosan
Silakan
first
dijawab
or nyaman first?
Yang mengirimkan jawaban silahkan dijawab.
Ayo. Anybody? It is interesting, you know, as a researcher, if you want to use this method, then you have to figure out how it fits with theory, right? If you remember, there's a way of coping things. The theory and psychology, for example, I get bored and I want to learn things, and that actually depicted by your responses here. That some of you, or actually many of you, took photo of a laptop. Sure, we can talk like, okay, because every day we deal with laptop, we use laptop for, you know, A to Z. Everybody use laptop because you stay at home, you work from home, you work, you know, you study at home. But is there any story behind or more than just laptop? Most probably this one, for example, where you talk about the use laptop maybe for social, to allow you to connect. Yes, we are, you know, apart, but a laptop helps you to cope by connecting to others, for example. Right? So laptop is no longer laptop at this point, but it is interesting to look at as a way to cope with the boredom or thing brought by COVID. Right? Well, the other thing is that you can use this to understand the role of family, right? Social bonding in the event of COVID. Then it's going to be really interesting data if you want to explore further, because yes, we are just, you know, apart, but in some way it allows us to be more connected, right, using technology. Some of you, for example, this one, for example. All right, it's maybe something that you're gonna miss. You want to communicate with other people. So there are a lot of themes that you can derive from this information. And that's the beauty of Photovoice. And you can use it for, for the project. All right. So I go back here. So that pretty much snapshot of Photovoice with Survey 123. Again, you don't need to use Survey 123. It depends on your project. My project in Virgin Island, for example, we do not use Survey 123. We use Facebook actually. So we created a Facebook gallery and that online gallery, and then we ask participants to comment photos. So that creates a discussion, live discussion. But again, depending on your interest, I like Survey 123, but sometimes you may not need it. But in my case, I like to create a map that show where people take photos. So that really become really interactive map that kind of fit with my needs. And I think a lot of social study also need to develop maps. So that's why. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much my presentation. So I open up for question, I guess.
Ya, terima kasih Mas Ignatius. Kita beri tepuk tangan dulu buat Mas Ignatius ya. tentu di sana dini hari ya. Oh, saatnya sahur ya Mas ya. Silakan kalau ada pertanyaan. Sambil menunggu pertanyaan, saya ingin menanyakan sekaligus mengelaborasi. Jadi untuk Photovoice ini terutama adalah riset kualitatif ya Mas ya. Dan ketika situasi seperti ini dan kita tidak memungkinkan mengadakan diskusi membahas foto-foto yang diambil oleh narasumber kita, apakah dari sisi kehandalan atau kualitas data itu memungkinkan untuk dilakukan misalnya diskusi lewat chatting atau email atau seperti ini, online discussion seperti ini?
Ya, artinya tergantung situasi juga ya. Saya sering mengadakan dengan Zoom juga bisa sebenarnya. It's just a matter of technology ya. If we cannot meet face to face, Zoom actually is really good. Because then you can record it automatically, right?
Yes.
You don't need to, if you go face-to-face interview, for example, then you have to have the tape recorder and you have to record it. With Zoom, for example, automatically record your conversation. Right, so it's faster.
Ya, lebih simple ya, lebih simple. Satu pertanyaan lagi dari saya, kalau seandainya nih, saya ada penelitian di Lombok gitu ya, dan kemudian ada narasumber di sana yang sudah posting foto-fotonya dari sejak bencana sampai sekarang recovery dan membangun lagi satu desa di sana. Apakah foto-foto yang dia unggah di Facebook-nya itu bisa dijadikan dasar untuk kita menggali lebih lanjut dan menanyakan mengapa foto itu yang diambil, apa maknanya dan sebagainya?
I will answer just like my advisor said. It depends.
Okay.
Tergantung. Karena kadang kita tidak mau kita memberi instruksi ya, memberi instruksi tergantung instruksinya ya. Jadi foto-foto tadi diambil sebelum instruksi masuk, ya kan? Jadi kalau kita mau memakai foto-foto itu, kalau pertanyaan tidak sesuai, tergantung topiknya juga kan. Kalau ada umpamanya ada 20 orang lain katakanlah yang mau ikut serta atau partisipasi, nah mereka yang punya foto sebelum. Gitu kan. Jadi sebaiknya kalau saya ada starting date, ada end date.
Okay. So we cannot choose which photo that we would like to use it as a data?
No, I would not recommend that because
Okay.
you would need to have clear photo or fresh photo depending on the question you ask. You cannot work retroactively.
Okay, so back to the research question then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your research question will derive what kind of questions you try to answer.
That's clear. And we can use it also as a research for public opinion.
I'll give you one example. For example, I'm currently working on, looking at the perception of hospitality worker in Indonesia on the impact of COVID in their daily life. So that's a cross board, like Indonesia one. So, and I think I'll show you, there's one group, one survey there. Basically, I asked them, please take picture of things, anything that represent the impact of COVID in your life for hospitality worker. That's across board. So that's Indonesia. So we're going to open it from, well, we already opened it like a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to open until August. So we can see the development of impact. And when you look at where they're from, since provinces have a different speed in the curve, so we can see how our photo follow this curve, right? Jakarta, for example, with stay at home, vast scale, for example, and most of photo probably at home, about home. Tetapi meskipun semua foto di dalam rumah, artinya bisa beda. Right? House is not just a house. Bisa dilihat kalau semua foto, katakan 100 foto ada tentang rumah ya, di dalam rumah. Bisa dilihat rumah bagaimana, apakah living room, apakah kitchen. Ya kan? Karena di rumah, filosofi rumah, ada bagian yang private, ada bagian yang public space. Ya kan? Jadi kalau foto diambil di ruang tamu, katakanlah, versus foto yang diambil di kitchen atau bagian dapur, gitu kan, beda kan? Seperti kalau kita mengajak orang masuk bertamu ke rumah, kalau kita belum mengenal orang tersebut, kita akan sekedar menjamu mereka di ruang tamu. Kalau mereka sudah kena akrab, oke, bisa ke kitchen, ruang keluarga. Jadi bisa dilihat dari filosofi ruang, katakanlah.
Nah, memungkinkan tidak misalnya kita quantifying the data. Jadi kan mostly tadi untuk qualitative research ya, tapi kemudian saat mengelaborasi foto dari mahasiswa, Mas Ignas sempat menyebutkan sebagian besar itu menampilkan foto laptop dan gadget mereka. Mungkin nggak ya dikuantifikasi, misalnya sekian persen itu gambarnya menunjukkan apa dan memaknai itu.
Bisa juga dia seperti itu. Cuma kalau kualitatif itu kan kita sekedar tidak mau berapa persen gitu ya. Jadi several and so forth. Because we need to quantify meaning. Remember that we have to quantify meaning, not necessarily the photo itself. The strength of meaning represented by the photo. So you can see, like, laptop, but when you look at the quote, a narrative, okay, what does it represent? Okay, and then you can categorize it.
Okay, yeah.
So you may end up with like laptop, categorize it as family bonding, or social bonding versus, creativity, for example. But if you just focus on content analysis, number of photo, then 16 laptop, 5 family, But then when you combine it with the narrative, it change.
Yeah, that's true. Mas Ignas, di antara peserta ini sudah hadir Mas Firman Kurniawan di other discussion. Jadi kelas MPK ini diampu oleh 2 dosen, saya sendiri dan Dr. Firman Kurniawan sudah hadir di sini. Mas Firman, selamat siang. Barangkali mau menambahkan insight-nya.
Halo Mbak, selamat siang.
Ya, selamat siang. Silahkan Mas.
Topik yang menarik Pak Ignatius. Cuman kami pernah belajar yang namanya juga namanya analisis multimodality. Nah, apa bedanya dengan analisis yang barusan Bapak terangkan?
So, analysis modality analysis itu lebih ke analisis foto, bisa melihat hanya foto, jadi content analysis katakanlah itu masuk ke modalitas, jadi hanya modenya saja, atau medium dari data collection. Kalau yang Photovoice itu sebenarnya lebih ke approach. Photovoice itu lebih ke approach. Jadi analisisnya itu pendekatannya bisa terserah. Jadi bisa juga memakai analisis modalitas. Juga bisa pendekatan feminis. Bisa juga melalui pendekatan PAR atau Participatory Action Research bersama. Bisa macam-macam. Photovoice itu sangat bagi saya sangat fleksibel karena analisisnya secara tematik juga bisa, analisisnya tentang apa terserah. Jadi pendekatannya bisa macam-macam. Dan bisa juga dipakai untuk analisis triangulation kan. Misalnya, for example, if you already have data collection using survey, for example, then you can also use this one to triangulate the finding. So, for me, Photovoice lebih ke approach. Analisisnya bisa macam-macam. Bisa pendekatan feminis, bisa analisis tekstual, dan lain-lainnya. Sangat-sangat fleksibel.
Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih Mas Firman. Barangkali mahasiswa ada yang sudah siap dengan banyak pertanyaan karena ada 2 buku free untuk mahasiswa, yang dosen tidak akan mendapatkan buku meskipun pertanyaannya bagus. Beberapa dosen hadir di sini, silahkan kalau ada pertanyaan juga.
Hello, I want to ask. Okay, my name is Cahyanto, and I want to ask you about, have you ever found any difficulties during doing Photovoice, especially when you are using disposable camera? Because as we know, disposable camera is also having cons and something like, I mean, when you watch the picture, sometimes they just didn't come out as what you want. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for a good question. Disposable camera poses a lot of weaknesses, if I can mention that. As you said, it's a little bit tricky because disposable camera, even though the beauty of disposable camera is that everybody get the same way of looking things. There's no zoom, you cannot zoom in, zoom out. You have limited number of frames, right? Remember that disposable camera, probably what, 27, 36, something like that, so limited. So unlike digital one, for example, if you don't like the photo, you can delete it. You cannot delete it with disposable camera. Right? So with disposable camera, if you use that method, you have to tell your participant like, okay, you cannot zoom in, zoom out. Make sure they know what they have to do. Because I can show you like for out of 27, for example, only like 3 that like really good quality. So then we waste about like 24 or 23, which is little blank, right? I can tell you one of the other thing is that when we don't like the photo, we can always delete it with this digital camera, not with disposable camera. So I ended up, when I use it, like I got like 1% took photo at 5 times. So the entire pretty much the device is broken, just 5 times photo of cat. And I tried to figure out what is the meaning of cat? Why cat? It's always, it almost drives me crazy because like, it's a tourism study, why cat? Then when I ask the questions in interview, it makes sense because this, you know, the photographer is a female, and she told us like, I just moved here from Sumatra. I do not have anybody, I know, I just follow my husband. And a friend of mine gave me this cat because I'm so lonely. Now remember, now a cat is no longer a cat, right? So, but then that's like 5 pictures, a photo, like cats. It drove me crazy. What is the meaning of cat? But then it makes sense. So yeah, so disposable camera pose a couple of challenges because you want to make sure that they know what they need to do because you have limited number of frames. Then after that, you have to develop it, right? You have to digitalize it if you need it. Okay, and then after digitalize it, then you have to print it. Take another step. Okay, but the beauty of it, everybody has the same medium. You cannot zoom in, you cannot zoom out. You have a limited number of frames. Again, it depends on what you need. In some cases, when there's no internet, there's no digital, it makes more sense to use disposable camera. But nowadays, I would not suggest you to use that method. Or just digital. It makes more sense to use digital camera because you're going to digitalize it anyway. But again, it depends on your need. I still remember in early 2000 or 2006, to be exact, I had to bring 50 disposable camera from United States to Indonesia. I stuck in custom.
Dikira menyelundupkan ya.
Menyelundupkan disposable camera because it was expensive also in Indonesia during that time.
Yeah, right now it's also expensive because it's not trend anymore. You know, itu yang disebut sebagai kamera Polaroid loh zaman dulu.
Yeah.
Ya, jadi langsung keluar cetakannya kan.
Yeah.
Ya, dulu sempat booming dan murah. Nah, sekarang mahal lagi karena orang sudah pegang handphone ya.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like they have to carry the camera every day. So during, like, for example, if you ask them to take photo and you give them a week, for example, to take photo, they have to carry the camera every day. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Heavy and so forth. But now everybody has cell phone with a camera in it. And we pretty much anywhere we go, we always have our cell phone. Use it.
Oke, ini ada satu pertanyaan di chat Mas Ignas terkait dengan peserta dari Vero.
Oke, Vero, saya mau bertanya terkait partisipan Photovoice. Apakah individu memerlukan kriteria atau syarat tertentu untuk menjadi partisipan? It depends on your research project or research questions. So, for example, in a study about, I think my colleague did a study on homelessness in Jogja, for example. Then the criteria, of course, you need to be homeless, right? Right. or about migrant worker, for example. Of course, the criteria to be, you need to be a migrant worker, right? It depends on your project. The eligibility questions or screening questions need to be there. So for example, when we do this project in Banten, we want to have somebody, we need to have equal representations of those who've been in the area, you know, just moving for about a year ago or 2 years ago, and somebody who already live in the area, oh, I don't know, 50 years or 60 years. Because the idea is that the longer you live in the area, the more attached you are with the area. Then the photo would be different, it would hold different meaning. Women versus men, for example, they have a different way of looking things, right? Younger and older, they have a different way of looking things. Even though it's the same thing, but the meaning behind it will be different. So again, it would depend on your research questions. And I would go with, okay, are you trying to get enough representations of that particular group to capture whole meanings and so forth? So it's up to you. And yes, you need to have eligibility criteria. What kind of criteria? It depends on your research questions. Does it help?
Iya. Silahkan kalau ada pertanyaan lagi. Ada pertanyaan? Silakan. Dibuka dulu mute-nya, baru ajukan pertanyaan. Mas Ignatius, sambil menunggu mahasiswa ada pertanyaan, kalau terkait dengan jumlah, selain kriteria, jumlah narasumber atau peserta yang kita minta mengirimkan foto, itu apakah ada ketentuan atau kembali ke masalah penelitian lagi?
Also, this depends, but it depends on the locality. I think how big in terms of geographical location, in terms of the topic you try to research, and so forth. So that's why I say that this is pretty much a blank box that you can adjust it depending on your need. So for example, if it's just a village, then I would go with, like, for example, 2025, assuming you have eligibility criteria, that would be enough to capture the whole spectrum. Mm-hmm. My experience, say, when you already hit about 20, you're going to hear same again, you know, and so forth. So, you know, basically data already saturated.
Oke, jadi sudah membentuk pola, ya jawabannya.
So once you see you probably, I would go with 2025, depending on how big the population, how vast the geographical locations is, and so forth. I think for qualitative method, we are interested in the depth of the meaning instead of how wide. So we're not necessarily interested in generalizing the finding per se, but we want to look at the depth of the meaning, and that's a qualitative method. So we just answer different questions versus or compared to quantitative research.
Kalau terkait dengan validitas atau kredibilitas data ya dalam kuantitatif, tapi dalam kualitatif mungkin disebut kualitas data, apakah ada pembandingnya supaya bisa dikatakan bahwa oh ya data itu memenuhi syarat?
Oh, yeah, so going back to the qualitative method or qualitative paradigm, that you still need your data to be valid. but the interpretation how the data can be considered valid is slightly different method. So you can do memory checking, right? So once you're done with to your participants, and that's how, you know, before you do a photo exhibition or, you know, showcase the photo participant and help them to, okay, is it what you actually said? And then help them to craft probably like a 3 or 4 sentences that they can be used to accompany the photo when you want to showcase it. So again, that's a way of we find validity in our data, right? Because qualitative, the way we measure quality, validity in qualitative approach is looking at member checking, going back to your participant and so forth, and say, hey, is it correct? And so forth.
Okay. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. Maybe there's a questions from the students.
I have like Aurel here asked, like, do we really need exhibition for end of result? If it does, who will attend the exhibition? Okay, the traditional procedure, yes, you need to do photo exhibition to showcase the photo along with narrative to public and policymaker to hopefully allow them to see the issues and change the policy. Okay, but I'm saying that, like, no, it's not necessarily. There's a lot of way to showcase photo narratives. You can use digital or online gallery. You can use photography books. Be creative. Public to create awareness of the issue. And for example, you can use it as a photography book where you can sell the book and the proceed goes to for a community project, for example, or in any other initiative. So you can use the photo. Yeah, you don't need to have photo exhibition. That's a standard way. But along with the technology, right now you can be more creative.
Yeah, and with the technology, you can, you know, show your picture to everybody in the world, not only who come to the exhibition.
Yeah.
Okay, there is
gallery, for example.
There's more questions from Rosa Artia.
I have a couple of questions here. I think we ran out of time, no?
It's okay. It's okay. We can extend a bit because we start later. We start late, you know, like 15 minutes late, so it's okay.
Okay. So, sorry.
Sahur kan, jadi langsung.
Oh, me? No. All right. Artia, okay. I want to not a professional photographer. This means some of the photo taken sent us to us will will be average or even bad. If there must be an exhibition, the end of result. That's the reason why you have to do a workshop. So you want to make sure that they know how to take photo. Do not skip that stage. Okay. So you select the photo based on communication with your participant. So if you ask them to take photo like you want to show, okay, so they are the facilitator. They're sharing their story. We just help them. So the selection of photo will be based on, again, communication with them. Then once you know, you can, modify the photo because you already know, okay, the focus on this one, the story about this one, then you can modify the photo. It's up to you. Hopefully they answered the questions. Rafael, recurrent photos. Okay, so some way that technology certainly help matching for the voice, but at the same time there could be some photo edited, so it looks like an edited photo at all. Is there any way to distinguish an edited photo and a genuine photo? Well, here's the thing. It is their story, it's their photo. If they edit it or not, it doesn't matter because it's their story. We just here to help them to share the story, okay? So the meaning behind the story is more important than the photo, quality photo itself, okay? So if I were you, I'm not worried about, okay, edited photo. If they're the one who edited, you should not edit the photo until you discuss the photo with the participants. Once you have it, then you can work with them to modify it. You can crop it, whatever. Okay, Melissa, Photovoice dikaitkan dengan journalism karena salah satu fungsi Photovoice adalah menyuarakan suara masyarakat. The answer is yes. It's part of citizen journalism. So you can use it, and in fact, a lot of friends of mine who are journalists, they use it also to gauge or to solicit information. So they just created a website, and they have people, load their photo with the story. So citizen journalism kind of thing. Okay, so any other questions? I think I already answered like all questions from the chat. Good questions though. I really appreciate the questions.
Yeah, I really appreciate the students too at this topic, encouraging them to ask questions, especially in English. So it's really good. It just needs courage to do it. So thank you, Mas Ignatius. If there is no more question, then we can end this discussion and guest lecture. I hope the student get so much knowledge as I do, and we can give applause to Mas Ignatius. Virtual applause is okay, right? Yeah.